roughly 20% of consumers lease their vehicle. However, Rivian doesn't provide leasing as an option. But that's all about to change, as the business has just unveiled the newest way to get an R1T. Limited information is known at this time. However, the automaker has sent out an email stating that leasing is coming next week for available R1T configurations in select states. Prospective customers, the business continued, get all the adventure of owning a Rivian with the flexibility of leasing. Quad-motor pickups with costs ranging from $92,600 to $94,250 were displayed after clicking the link and viewing available R1T configurations. However, the email did say that this was just a preview and that the vehicles are subject to change. While we anticipate additional information in the near future, we can already say that leasing will offer several advantages to Rivian's clients. The $7,500 federal tax credit may be the biggest, but it has been difficult to obtain. For the federal tax credit to apply, the vehicle's manufacturer-suggested retail price, MSRP, cannot exceed $80,000 for vans, sport utility vehicles, and pickup trucks, despite the fact that Rivian trucks and SUVs are built in the USA. This is problematic because Rivian's initial efforts were directed toward more expensive luxury trims. However, with the leasing loophole's help, that issue may disappear, resulting in huge cost savings for consumers. Customers of Rivian will be given a new option that, at the very least, makes their R1T more desirable. And so, while we wait for more information about this, we compare the Rivian quad motor versus the dual motor. Since initially, the company says it will be for a selected configuration only. Earlier this year, Rivian expanded its facilities in Normal, Illinois by approximately 20% to manufacture its Enduro drive unit. This is a departure from Bosch's offering of drive units for Rivian's quad-motor vehicles and could aid in easing the production bottlenecks that have plagued the company's efforts to increase output of their R1T adventure pickup, R1S 3-row SUV, and EDV electric delivery van. Their Enduro drive unit, standard in their EDV, and Rivian's new dual-motor versions, was created in-house to be more efficient, less expensive, and better insulated from supply chain shocks that quaked their industry during the pandemic. This was timed perfectly with Rivian's start of production in 2021. For $16.5 million in 2017, Rivian purchased their abandoned Mitsubishi factory, where it currently produces both quad-motor and dual-motor vehicles. The 4 million square foot factory highlighted the 620,000 square foot extension needed to create Enduro, and how that drive unit will enable production for a less expensive R2 platform, scheduled to be produced at a new plant in Georgia as early as 2026. Its Normal plant is currently on track to produce 52,000 Rivians this year, with an ultimate goal of 150,000 units. Its passenger cars will be available with either a normalized dual-motor setup or a quad-motor setup using 4 motors produced by Bosch. Their Enduro single-motor drive unit is their only one used on the front axle of their EDV from the beginning of this year. Here is a rundown of Rivian's dual-motor versions and their Enduro driving system. Rivian's dual-motor versus quad-motor design. The Rivian Enduro drive unit differs mechanically from the Bosch unit in terms of size, price, and efficiency. The larger and longer housings of the quad-motor units are due to the fact that they include not one but 2 motors and 2 gear sets. According to Mason Verbrugge, Rivian's chief drive unit engineer, the rear axle quad unit is 135 mm in length, while the front axle quad unit is 110 mm in length. High-voltage cables and mounting hardware add another 75 pounds to the front axle assembly, bringing the total weight to around 275 pounds. Each Enduro unit, on the other hand, is roughly 220 pounds. When applied to dual-motor versions, this amounts to a savings of roughly 155 pounds. Even for a car like the R1T dual-motor performance, whose curb weight is around 6,750 pounds, every ounce counts. With 1 motor, 1 gear set, and 1 basic rotating assembly, there are fundamental physics advantages, Verbrugge said. There aren't twice as many moving parts in a quad, including 2 sets of gears, 2 motors, bearings, and windage losses. The inverter, motor, and gearbox are all enclosed in a single enclosure, developed and manufactured by Rivian rather than being supplied as individual sealed units that must be put together. Less material is required for construction, and there is less unnecessary machinery. It becomes a lot simpler once the criteria of all three subsystems are met, he said, explaining the basic principle behind the design. Instead of setting a target for what Rivian intended the motors to perform from Bosch and modifying it back and forth to get it perfect for the specific use case, the main benefit of designing its own motors comes from their understanding of how to program and optimize the motors from the start. For instance, dual motor versions inverters, which transform DC from the battery into AC for the motor, vary by axle. The inverter in the front unit uses a more expensive silicon carbide module, whereas the one in the back uses a cheaper silicon module. Silicon carbide has an efficiency of more than 99% compared to roughly 98% efficiency with silicon, according to Silver Hiddy, Rivian's Senior Director of Electric Power Conversion. Compared to if Rivian had used silicon power modules for both inverters, Hiddy claims this amounts to 3.5% more range at maximum efficiency. In dual motor models, the front unit is where you'll see the most benefit from using the more efficient and more expensive silicon carbide. By the time we came to Enduro, we understood those use cases super well, Verbrugge added. According to him, if you know exactly what the motor needs to do, you know where you can really dial in and prioritize being efficient in these areas on that operating map. Rivian quad motor versus dual motor drive modes. The Rivian dual motor system is not equipped with a conserve mode like the quad motor system is. Instead, the rear axle is decoupled in all-purpose mode, allowing the truck to function as a front-wheel drive vehicle. But the rear axle powers on demand as well, not only with a button click. Under full throttle, the torque bias can flip from 100/0 to about 45/55 in a split second. Unless the conserve mode is activated, the quad motor's all-purpose will continue to be connected in. To minimize inefficient parasitic losses, the dual's all-purpose mode, like the quad's conserve mode, is the default. To what extent the performance dual motor's increased torque at the front axle will wear out tires is unknown. But it shouldn't be as extreme as the quad's conserve mode. The final drive ratio of the Enduro is less than that of the quad, which is 12.9:1 all around. The dual motor's front and rear final gear ratios are 11.04:1 and 13.7:1, respectively. There shouldn't be as much uneven wear on the tires as there is in conserve mode in the quad, because it disconnects the rear axle and doesn't have the extra surge of power from sport mode, at least in most driving scenarios except when flooring it. Rivian quad motor versus dual motor towing. R1T and R1S both have maximum towing capacities of 11,000 and 7,700 pounds, respectively. There is a 7-pin harness for towing as standard equipment. However, Rivian claims that trailer sway reduction is already included in the software, thus no load distributing hitch is necessary. The brake controller can be accessed via the right steering wheel control or through the touch screen. While in park, it can be lowered to the low ground clearance setting of 10.1 inches for greater efficiency on the highway, or remain in the usual 11.3-inch position. Both soft and stiff settings are available to drivers. When in tow mode, Rivian claims a 45% decrease in estimated range, albeit this is an approximation dependent on factors such as driving style, trailer weight, and road conditions. Rivian's strength lies in the precision with which it estimates range. The system will either ask for the trailer's weight or automatically calculate it, and the resulting trailer profiles will inform the range estimations, which will improve with time. By allowing towing in off-road and snow mode for both quad and dual motor models, their upgrade will also take into account more traction-based scenarios. As part of their upgrade, their R1T's bed camera angles will become functional. With that being said, what do you rather have? The quad motor or the dual motor? Share your experience in the comment box below. If you've watched up to this point, thank you so much. For more videos about EVs, Toyota, Tesla, Ford, and the most recent auto news, please consider subscribing to Tech Addicts.